Hello, I'm Pandora Sykes and welcome to Rivals, the official podcast. Step inside my Rutshire residence as we celebrate Rivals, the brand new original series, now streaming on Disney Plus and Hulu. Coming up, actor Gary Lamont and screenwriter Laura Wade join us to talk about the glitz and the glamour of the 80s and the dark side of the decade. Alex Hassel and Bella McLean spill all about bringing Rupert and Taggy to life. Plus, Rivals fans Sindhu V and Cat Brown are with me throughout to share their favourite moments and theories on those cliffhangers. This is the place for all the on-set gossip, tantalising, behind-the-scenes tidbits, and real insight into how the world of Jilly Cooper's scandalous English county was brought to your screens. Before we start, this is an 18+ show. There may be explicit language and we will be discussing sensitive topics. If you haven't already, please set up your parental controls. And a warning, spoilers ahead. Joining me first are two very special guests, actor and comedian Emily Atack and executive producer and writer Dominic Treadwell Collins. Emily, Dominic, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dominic, 3 words to sum up the first series of Rivals.
Delicious, naughty, provocative, I would say. Yeah.
Oh,
That's you as well.
I'm sodden.
We've been living in Jilly World for a really, really long time.
We have.
Emily, have padded shoulders and L-net become a staple of your wardrobe since the show?
Do you know, I've actually used L-net for a really long time. I think we need to bring it back. I remember using L-net when I was at school, and everyone's like, why are you using L-net? That's so old school. I've never gone away from L-net. But yeah, no, L-net shoulder pads make me think of my mum. My mum, I always look at photos of my mum in the 80s because she looked so amazing, and she was a bit of a star in the 80s, my mum. So yeah, and I remember all the shoulder pads, looking at all them. So, and it's a very nice cut on me, actually, a shoulder pad.
All right.
No, it is. It's a really good cut on me.
Let's have a little look at one of my favourite bits in episode 1 that ends with a truly iconic line.
You bastard! You've been shagging Sarah Stratton, too.
It was only tennis.
She's a deliciously outrageous character.
She is.
Did you have a lot of fun playing her?
Oh my God, like beyond. It was too exciting. I was giddy, and you know, I think we always assume that women like that are unlikable, and that's just not. It's not the case. She's ambitious, and yeah, she's just trying to get the things that she really wants in life. And she's a car crash of a woman, and I actually hope that it doesn't all work out for her, because I want to continue playing her as a complete arsehole.
Dominic, why Jilly Cooper? Why Rivals, which is just one of the 10 Rutshire Chronicles? What was it about this story and these characters that made you want to adapt it for telly?
Riders had already been done for television. Rivals has always stayed with me as the best book by the greatest writer, and it has Taggy and Rupert's love story taking you through it, which is really important. For me, the love story with Taggy is so key to the heart of Rupert.
Well, he's never had a reason to change, and he probably would never have a reason to change ever if it wasn't for Taggy.
If it wasn't for Taggy. And Taggy is the one person who can change him. And we talked a lot about the groping and whether we could show that on screen, and yes, we sat in the writers' room and wriggled that out, because we said that's...
Did you tussle with whether to include that?
Some of the younger writers said you can't keep that in.
Because it doesn't show Rupert in a good light.
Well, also we will never want Rupert and Taggy to get together if he has groped her. And we said, well, that he's got to change. That's got to stay in.
And he is held accountable for his actions.
He is.
You know, he's called out by me at the dinner table, by Catherine. It's something he genuinely goes, oh, I got that wrong.
It's a great comment on the 80s as well. And he's a product of his privilege.
Exactly.
And
yes.
Without that moment, you sort of don't understand the context of a lot of these men who have grown up and extraordinary. I mean, Baz, who's obviously quite a secondary character, but is actually really glorious in the series. He's also just sailed through life in a way that poor old Tony actually didn't really. You know, Baz just had the best time. And like Rupert, they just everything's for the pickings for them, isn't it?
And it's interesting you just said poor old Tony. I think that's what's really interesting as well, is that Tony's an awful villain, but has all these layers. And you feel for him at all these different moments. Even later when he finds out that Cameron has been sleeping with Rupert, he's genuinely heartbroken. And then he's awful shit again.
Even knobheads get heartbroken.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Dominic, talk to us about the challenges behind bringing the 80s into 2024. It's obviously a very fun decade aesthetically.
Yeah.
The clothing and the makeup and the sets. But modern audiences have modern expectations around the drama now they consume. How did you keep it authentic to the Rutshire Chronicles, to the 80s, but relevant to a modern audience, where they're going to root for these characters?
One of the most important things to me and the team at the beginning was not to rush through it. It's a big book, and we early on made the decision to only do half of it, so we could luxuriate in the world and we could examine Jilly's characters in more depth. I mean, Sarah Stratton has a bigger story than she has
she's got a much
in the
bigger role.
book.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's funny, when I first got the book, I was like, just skipping to the Sarah Stratton bits, going, right. I'm like, okay, I'm not really, I'm not there
She's
yet.
got sensational golden shoulders.
Yes.
I remember that.
And I was so
Yeah.
happy when she eventually made her entrance, which wasn't the naked tennis scene like I thought it was. But yes, when I eventually saw her, I was like, oh, right, she's very glamorous, very nice. But yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah. I was like, oh, that lovely bit of that. Golden shoulders.
Golden
Don't
shoulders.
know
You've
about
got
that.
good shoulders.
Golden? Not right now. I've just had a baby, but maybe. They were golden when I was put in that spray tanning booth every single week. So many spray tans. I mean, we'd all sort of catch each other coming out.
Smelling of
"Are you all right?"
biscuits.
Yeah. Okay, is it your turn? Yeah.
and that was with the storytelling. It let us dig into every single character a bit more. And because my background and Alex Lamb, the other exec's background, was EastEnders and long-running story, we knew we wanted to lay down extra bits of character for the future, and that's made it a bit more special while being true to Jilly. That was always really, really key, having Felicity Blunt as an executive producer and her encyclopedic Jilly knowledge.
She is Jilly's agent.
She's Jilly's
Felicity,
agent.
yeah, so they have a long-standing relationship.
And Jilly herself being involved. We really threshed out the stories and the characters, and in the writers' room we had young writers and older writers and a mixture of sexualities and races, and we played around with it all. And Charles and Gerald's storyline, I
love that story.
it doesn't exist in the book.
Oh, yeah.
And we expanded it to tell the story of what it was like to be a gay man in the 80s. That's what's been amazing. We can look at it like a period piece and celebrate bits, judge little bits a bit.
And it's very interesting, obviously, that you come from a soap background, because they are like soaps. There's so many
Yeah.
characters, there's so many things going on at the same time.
But it's so funny because characters like Sarah, she really desperately wants to be loved, and she sort of sees Paul as a bit of a father figure, the kind of stoic, kind of looking after her,
Yeah.
arm around her. And yes, she's repulsed by him, but I think he looks after her. And I think even though that there is definitely a disingenuous relationship there and there's hidden agendas as to why she's married him, of course, she's climbing a ladder, she's trying to get to where she wants to be. But I do think there's a genuine need for care, and she wants to be looked after.
Top of the ladder at the end of the series,
Yeah.
and then finds out she's pregnant.
And, I'm very method. So that kind of... that exactly played out in my real
why
life.
you had a baby.
Which is insane, yeah.
I feel like we've suitably deep dove, Sarah.
Good point. What is that? Deep dove?
Deep dove them?
Dived.
On to Google later.
Dave.
What is your funniest moment from the series?
Oh my God, there's too many. Those girls, those women, Claire Rushbrook, Catherine Parkinson, Lisa McGrillis, they make me laugh more than any women I have ever met in my life. Hands down. No, more than any people in my life. They are so funny, and we laugh the whole time. Rufus Jones is so funny. Rufus is so good at improvising. Everything that came out of his mouth was funny, and we all got the fits of giggles all the time. I couldn't pick a single moment because it was all just such a laugh and brilliant.
Emily Atack, Dominic Treadwell-Collins, thank you so much for both coming. It has been a pleasure to have you both. I'm very excited to now be welcoming another two very special guests, Rivals star Gary Lamont, who plays Charles Fairburn, and executive producer and writer Laura Wade. Gary, Laura, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming along.
Thank you for having us.
For having us.
Gary, you have an amazing range of facial hair in this series. Did you take great joy in all that topiary?
I really did. Well, I initially, in the first 4 episodes, certainly our first block, I was on another job and they couldn't agree on which facial hair to have. So I had to be clean shaven for one job, and then the beginning is a sticky on moustache. It's not my own facial hair. So the beginning it's glued to your top lip. So I'm sort of like, thankfully it doesn't have to like be happy a lot of the time. So a lot of the time I was like talking through this, and if I had to laugh, I had to hold it because it would rip, and they're really expensive. So I had to laugh like, ha 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 ha, and stick it down a lot. So yeah, halfway through I was able to grow my own, with which I was grateful to be able to do this to people.
But then did you feel a bit behind everybody else?
Slightly, because I mean it's incredible. The facial hair is so there's myself, there's Danny, Aidan, and Handlebar. I mean, Aidan's is like
Beautiful.
It's really strange to see him
Lustrous,
without
isn't
it now. I think I prefer him with it.
Did you manage to sneak anything home? Because the sets were, of course, fantastic. I'd quite like to take something from Green Lawns. I feel like Mousy would have some really good loo roll holders.
Green Lawns. Green Lawns was the first week we were on set, and I remember walking into that house on the first day, and I mean it's just, I mean, Dominic Hyman and who's our production designer, and his team did such an incredible, beautiful, loving job on everything. I wouldn't have dared take anything away, actually, because it would have been taking something from someone's actual real house.
Oh,
no,
yeah.
I didn't pinch anything. But everything was so beautifully chosen. Did you? What did you?
I did, yeah.
Did you?
I mean, I'll start with the sort of least culpable offence.
Wait, way up.
I have some paintings. No, it's okay. I had at the end we were doing the sort of debate, and we all have the little badges. So I have the Corinium badge.
Okay, yeah, that's a
That's
must.
fine, isn't it?
Nice.
We spent a lot of time in Corinium offices, and we had a lot of downtime, and there was some really lovely stationery. So I've got about 3 or 4 notepads, really nice notepads, to write down all my thoughts and feelings.
Did you get some headed paper so that you could write?
No headed paper. I mean, I
official letters?
literally was getting out of control. I found myself looking at a stapler, and I was like, what do you need that for? Put the stapler down. So yeah, apologies to the art department, because I have some really nice notepads, and they're beautiful colours. That's what attracted me. I was like, these blues and greens, and so I've got about 3 of them.
I know there's more. You're just
No, well,
debating.
actually, but the first, did you shoplifted? Did you ever shoplift as a child?
No.
I got caught stealing a Mars bar from Woolworths when I was about 12, and that was the beginning and end of my thieving career until this job. So I really am afraid of it, but I suppose once a baddie, always a baddie.
Laura, Rivals is now out in the world, and we have loved every second of it. Did you have a particular favourite moment that's been brought to life?
I think my favourite moment is in episode 8, and it's the point where Rupert and Cameron have been having their secret affair for a while, and it gets found out at Valerie Jones's big garden open day. And it is discovered by Rupert's dog running up to Cameron and saying hello to her, and then we see Tony watch it on the screen later. And he knows what's been going on because of the way that the dog greets Cameron, that if the dog knows her that well, then there's something going on between those two. And so there's just so much going on there in terms of the drama of it. But I think for me, it just feels like the most Jilly Cooper thing in the world to have an affair reveal accidentally by a dog. So I think it just feels very pure.
Gary, what was your approach to playing Charles Fairburn? Because he's silly at times, he's jolly, but his story is intensely moving. His love life, his mother, his panic attacks, and you play it all beautifully. How did you approach the light and shade of his character?
Essentially, and I'm not just saying this because I'm sitting next to the writer, it's the writing does it. You know, it does most of the heavy lifting. I suppose initially when I received the audition, that's what I hooked into, was just that sort of gritty sadness. I was like, I know that, you know, I really know that. I have empathy for that. I've thankfully never had to sort of experience it myself. but that empathy was just right on the surface. I knew exactly where to go with it and how far to go with it. You know, I think a lot of people would maybe be afraid, but I relish those ugly, snotty, teary moments. You know, that's the sort of drama for an actor. So, I loved that he had those elements of light and fluffy and frothy, but we really got the depth of him as well. So it was so well rounded for me that it was. I had no choice but to just jump in and do warts and all.
Gary, your reactions to the homophobia directed towards Charles were so powerful, and that breakup scene when Charles tries to give Gerald a key. What were you drawing on during those scenes?
Well, that was day one of shooting for both Hubert and I, that scene in the Folly.
Thrown in at the
with the
deep
key.
end.
And they gave it, bless our producers, Eliza did say to her agents, we're going in. So that was day one. So again, we didn't have time to think about it, thankfully. Elliot, our director, was just so kind and brilliant and really protective of it. He kind of just, you know, we didn't do it too many times. We tried, maybe we sort of dug a bit deeper, but it was really simple to do. And I think a lot of the time, we'd only just met that afternoon. Hubert and I had arrived on set a couple of hours before. So the sort of trepidatiousness that we had with each other, we were able to feed that into that awkwardness. But I mean, it's delicious to play, you know, other people's misery. If it's not your misery, it's excellent to do.
Let's remind ourselves how we leave Charles and Gerald with their relationship.
Okay.
I really think I could bear to be married to her, and especially if it meant everyone would stop asking me why I'm not married. It'll give me the respectability I need for my career, and then we can be together. Still in secret. But safe.
It's so sad.
It's so sad, and this, I really raged against this, like with Alex and Dom. I was constantly, and there's like we were all in it together, you know, that we were all on the same side. But I was constantly like, no, why, how? And again, I had to check my privilege, my modern day privilege, and sort of take it back. So that it was horribly difficult to do because I really had to act at being okay with it. And it's not resolved, you know, we've not resolved what that is.
What do you see happening between them because he's offering him a compromised relationship?
Well, therein lies the sort of horrors of life at that time.
Yeah.
And as the producer so often reminded me, that is paradise. That's as much as he's going to get.
Yeah.
That's it. So it's take that or have nothing. And have no one. And I always thought, the way I always played Charles with Gerald was he won the lottery. Like, even in the secretive furtiveness of it all, that was paradise for him, because that was the limitations of his love as to how that was all he was allowed in terms of love. I want Charles to run off into the sunset and like be out and proud, but he wasn't allowed to do that.
I want him to appear at the wedding. Does anyone have anything to...
Yeah, who knows? Who knows? I mean, I'm as clueless as everyone else.
Laura, what was the best bit about working with Jilly on her Chronicles?
Getting to hang out with Jilly. I mean, she has to be one of the most delightful human beings in the world.
Yeah.
And so just a really benign and positive presence anytime she ever went to the set.
It was like having royalty, wasn't it? It was like it was having royalty when she arrived.
But she was so admiring of everybody else's. I remember a day standing next to her on set and her looking around going, my goodness, look at all these heavenly men.
Oh, yeah.
and it's just gorgeous. And she didn't just mean the actors either. She meant all the crew.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the
and the
men
dogs
were,
as well.
There were a lot of heavenly men,
dogs,
yeah.
Heavenly dogs.
Has she sent you any of her pop-up dog postcards?
What is this?
No.
She's written me a few notes in my time when
All
we
right,
worked with
Pandora.
previously.
She's shown off.
And she sends dog postcards, which you can then turn into sort of actual dogs that sit on shelves. So my children would be very confused. They would assume they were for them. And I could, no, these are mine.
Like origami, do you have to make it yourself?
It's sort of, but not that
Sort of.
hard.
Okay.
She's got some. There's only one person she can buy them from. Ask them about.
Have you got one?
No.
I'm going to set our sights are set on getting one.
That is the
Thank
next
you for
life
that
goal.
tidbit.
Yeah.
We want one.
Oh my gosh.
Laura Wade, Gary Lamont, it's been a dream talking to you both. Thank you so much for coming along.
Thank you for
Thank
having us.
you.
Coming up,
Well, it didn't quite start like that, did it? There was a small matter of my buttocks before that.
Could she ever be Mrs. Friedlander?
Oh my God.
Please note there are spoilers ahead. Now, I'm delighted to introduce two people who will be dropping in throughout the show, and I can assure you they are Rivals fans, Sindhu V and Kat Brown. Welcome.
Hello.
As I think we've established, Rivals is full to the brim with sex. And I think it was absolutely the right decision to begin the series with an in-flight sex scene. How did you react to all the on-screen naughtiness?
I'm just really cross that I never got a chance to fly on Concorde because it looks tremendous fun. If you weren't having sex in the bathroom, you were being fed lobster or champagne, or like some millionaire was smoking a cigar up front or something.
Can't think why they can't afford to run it anymore.
No, quite. The first nudity is Rupert's bum. Beatty is fully clothed throughout, and that just very subtly sets this amazing
That it's
female gaze
2024.
view through it. In the same way that later in the episode, the first full frontal nudity that we see is Alex Hassel at the tennis court.
That Concorde scene, I was just focusing on how amazing Beatty's hair is. It's the most aggressively 80s haircut. It's so hard to pull off. She does actually look really hot with that hair, but I just was thinking I would not have done well in that hair and costume. That is a hard 80s look.
She's a walking advert for how to use gel successfully. We don't leave it looking crunchy, but it's just there, and she doesn't move even after some, quite acrobatic moves in the bathroom with Rupert.
Yeah. Sindhu, you were obviously new to Rivals when you watched the show.
Yeah.
Were you surprised by the bedroom activity?
No, because I knew of Jilly Cooper.
So you knew there was going to be
I knew the
sex.
vibe. What I will say is that it's a very specific point of view about sex, which is very English. It's very specific because it's kind of sex, but it's slightly eccentric. It's not prudish, but it's not laissez-faire. If you showed a Scandinavian this, they would be like, what is this? This is like comical. But if you showed a French person, they'd be like, yes, everyone's having affairs. What's your point? But this is very English, You're married, and it's a little bit of like, well, hey, you know what I mean? Which is so English. So you could at a pinch watch this show without necessarily feeling too uncomfortable, and keep it just light and humorous. It doesn't have to be like big sex, like, meaningful big sex. It's like, all right, and they pick gorgeous people. So you're like, yeah, I can watch this. But it's not serious sex, And the other thing about the naughtiness is it's always depicted the kind of naughty everyone wishes some point in their life they had. Everybody. You said you want to be on Concorde, not just eating lobster, let's be honest, Kat. So, it's that kind of naughtiness.
Everyone wants to play naked tennis.
Everyone wants to play naked tennis with a guy they find hot.
I'd just like to be able to play tennis.
Oh, I just like to find
I just
tennis
want to be good at
interesting.
tennis.
Imagine finally getting together with a guy you've had a crush on who's lovely, and you finally get the guts, and he starts slurping champagne off your chest. Yes, please.
Whose relationships were you rooting for the most, Sindhu?
Lizzie and Freddie, come on. I mean, how could you not? They're both in pain. They're both trying to do the right thing. And they care about each other. And they care about, they see each other.
They have incredible chemistry. It's actually really
Exactly.
sexy to watch.
Yeah.
Like, you can see just the steam between them.
But the steam comes from the fact that they see each other.
Yes, totally.
That's where the
Totally.
steam comes from. And that, I think, is such a lesson in what real intimacy is.
Yes.
It's not being the hottest person in the room.
Yes.
It's being seen.
Yes, absolutely.
With Charles, he's been in this really unsatisfactory one-way relationship with Gerald, and he deserves so much more. Again, one of the reasons that I always enjoyed Jilly Cooper's writing in a way that I didn't necessarily her contemporaries was the fact that just from the off, she always included lesbian and gay representation, and not in a sort of like, and now we're going to have a gay person here. Again, always fully rounded characters, because that was the world that she saw from her years in journalism, from TV and everything else. And it just means that by including people that she knew and characters and types that she knew, you just get this richer, wider world. And certainly for me, growing up as I was then in the middle of nowhere in the countryside, that already opened my eyes beyond what I knew growing up in a then internet-free 90s.
I've got the honour and pleasure of welcoming two very special guests to my Rutshire residence now. Rival stars Alex Hassel and Bella McLean, our very own Rupert and Taggy. Bella, Alex, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having us.
Alex, are you now calling everyone Angel? And are you still playing tennis in the nude?
I mean, where I live, actually, in North London, there's a lot of tennis courts. I think I would offend the neighbourhood if I was playing naked tennis. I don't tend to call people Angel. Maybe I should take it on.
What do you call people?
I mean, I can't remember their names. So
Yeah.
Darling.
Han, sweet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Bella, have you cooked dinner for 200 people recently? Poor Taggy.
I love how I questioned that for a second. Funny enough, no, I've not. I've definitely not, and I don't even know if Taggy would. No, she did.
I think there were 200 at the 21st.
I think there were, but I had a bit of help there, which was nice.
I mean, Taggy is the moral backbone in Rivals, possibly along with Fred. The one keeping everything together. She isn't out gallivanting. Everyone else is off having a lovely time. She's at home cooking and cleaning while her dramatic, arty parents fight and flee. She's not slipping into bed with any of the men who fancy her because she's obviously pining for Ralphie. What did you want to bring to the role of Taggy?
I guess I wanted to honour Taggy's moral compass. I feel what really drew me to her was she really, really stands up for what she believes in, and she's in a world where there are such strong characters around her. I think she's really unafraid to say what she thinks and stands up for what she believes in. And I think that's where we actually get along really well. I think that's what you found intriguing about me.
Yeah. Not many people bring Rupert to task like Taggy does, I guess.
Yeah, I really love that about her. And I also love she's very kind. I feel like she lives from a place of kindness. And actually, it's a really lovely thing to play because you subconsciously start questioning the way you are. And I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed playing that part of her.
Of all the characters in Jilly Cooper's books, Rupert Campbell-Black is the most famous. He is mythically beautiful, sexually voracious, unbelievably successful, and a very arrogant man. Let's remind ourselves of his introduction to the audience. I mean, it had to start like that, obviously.
Well, it didn't quite start like
that, did it?
There was a small matter of my buttocks before that.
There is the small matter of your buttocks.
Which is the name of my autobiography, by the way.
How did you approach this role, knowing that he is quite a mythical person?
It's a really good question.
Was it daunting?
Yes, it was daunting, yeah. It was daunting. I obviously so brilliantly had the source material and the scripts that are so excellent to the sort of main focus of preparation, of course. And I was given so much help by a team of people trying to make me look as attractive as possible, including a personal trainer.
He paid us, actually, to give him compliments.
That's exactly it.
To build up the arrogance.
That's it. And but, I was given a fake tan and they dyed my hair and curled my eyelashes and things like that. And all of the essays were told to look at me, when the camera was rolling.
On and off the camera.
On and off. Was that true? I thought maybe I was just Ruperting. But... to make me
I like that. Did you have that? Did that become a verb when you...
it is now. He was really forcing it down our throats.
Just been Ruperting. Yeah, exactly. So they every time I walked into a room, they would look at me as if I was Harry Styles or something, and that was very helpful. So I had to try and get my head around, I guess, the idea that what it would have been like to have grown up with that level of privilege, and also with people, him being famous and being adored by so many people sort of from his teens, what that must feel like. Unfortunately, that is quite alien to me as a human being, but it was fun to play around in.
Yeah.
Bella, what was your favourite scene to play? For me, it might be Taggy in the maid outfit. She's clearly so pissed.
Oh my God, so uncomfortable in it, genuinely, in real life and on screen.
Being made to answer the door while she's also trying to cook for 14 people and serve.
Yanking it down. It's sort of like rising up. My favourite scene? Well, I had... There's scenes that I love to film as the character, but also scenes that we had a lot of fun doing.
Yeah.
The scene that came out that was still hard to film was the Lady in Red scene, which when I watch now, I'm so touched by the way it came out,
Yeah.
because it's shot so beautifully by John and Elliot, and it felt like the beginning of the start for us.
And Jilly was there too, wasn't
Yeah,
she?
it was it was really important to get this moment right, and it did take a few times for us to work out, like what, how far to go with the characters, and so the final product of that I was so pleased with. But something that was really, really fun was when we got the worst giggles I think I've ever got in my life.
Is that
and
going
when
up
we go in, we Declan's.
lawnmower?
No, you won't.
Oh.
Yes.
When he's drunk and mowing the lawn.
Oh,
He's not
yes.
mowing the- But we have to go into his office and check if he's.
It was just like a 2-second scene where we had to
It's
go and
nothing.
look in an office, he wasn't
Look
there,
at
and then
each
go out the
other.
door. But we just couldn't
Something
look
happened
at each
where
other.
I don't know what happened, but I think I nearly wet myself.
And the worst is when you're trying not
Oh, it was
to laugh,
awful.
and then it's actually impossible. It's like you're about to throw up.
I was
know,
watching
exactly.
and going. I remember watching the episode and going, I'm so curious as to how they're going to cut this.
Yeah.
Because I just
No, there's
have
a lot of
this
giggle inside.
wiggle-
I know.
Yeah, it was so much fun, and it was such a
Yeah.
happy show as well. And obviously, there's a light and the dark of every show, but the general vibe on set was really. We were so happy
it
to
was
be
so important
there.
that we all got on really well. And
You
that
can
we,
really sense that.
Yeah.
You have a lot of sex scenes. What?
Do I? I don't.
Oh no!
Yeah, oh, yes,
Yes,
I do. Yes, sorry, yes. Yes, I do.
How do you approach something like that? What's it like working with intimacy coordinators? How did you make sure that you felt comfortable?
Yeah.
Everyone
It's
felt
really
comfortable.
important. It's so good that they are now such a big part of our work, and it's sort of astonishing that there was a long time that wasn't the case, and thank God that's changed. Every time that there is sexual content in the show, which is what I'm so pleased about in the show, is that it's forwarding the action or the relationships or the emotional dynamics of the scenes and the characters. None of it's gratuitous to my mind. So you're discussing that stuff, like what's happening in the story, why, what is being communicated here between the characters. And then obviously you have the discussions about your levels of comfort in terms of nudity, or, where we would touch each other or not touch each other, and who the closed set sort of nature of it all. But knowing that I had a lot of this stuff to do, I made a pretty conscious decision to try and be fairly, obviously to respect the process and everyone's boundaries and such, but to be fairly comfortable in myself about
You're
it, because I think
fantastic. Oh my
otherwise
God,
it would have
yeah.
been a miserable experience.
Gosh.
And also I wouldn't have taken the job if I wasn't all right with it. So
We obviously have to talk about that ending. The fans will be dying at that shot of you and Taggy. Is Rupert a reformed man?
I think he's trying. I think he definitely, over the course of the season, does much sort of more charitable things for people, like Charles Fairburn and his mum and Taggy.
Yeah.
So I hope he's on the path to redemption, but I wouldn't want it to be too smooth.
Alex Hassel, Bella McLean, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. Joining me now, it's the wonderful Lara Peake, who plays Daisy, and talented writer Mimi Hare. Lara, Mimi, thank you so much for coming along.
Thank you for having us. Yeah, thank you for having us.
Lara, Daisy has an array of fantastic jumpers in the series. Did you get to keep any?
Oh my God, I wish. No, I didn't. I should have asked Ray, our costume designer, if I could take the one that's in episode 2 with the bunny. I think he had that especially made, but no, I didn't get to keep any.
One of my favourite things about Daisy is the unusual spelling of her name, which she changes so it shows up better on the programme credits. Do you think that's part of Daisy's power, that people think she's quite ditzy, and she does have her moments, but she actually, for the most part, knows exactly what she's doing?
Yeah, I'm not sure it's conscious that she wants people to think that about her so that she can surprise them. I think it's just she genuinely is quite flamboyant and excitable and just loves her job and everyone around her. But I think she is also really good at it. So people kind of overlook that, I think, which kind of does become a bit of a superpower, I think, for her.
Mimi, what was your favourite rival scene that you worked on?
That's hard. There were so many. Well, obviously the train scene between Lizzie and Freddie, because we love their storyline, that very realistic romance that goes throughout the whole series. And that moment where they see each other and they'd like to be together and they have that attraction, but they're both married. And then when he runs like Superman off to get her manuscript.
Mimi, we've spoken a few times with our guests about exploring the light and the dark sides of the 80s in Rivals, and it's a series which obviously doesn't shy away from challenging subjects. And one particularly tough storyline involves Lara's character Daisy, who is raped by Reverend Penny. How did you and the writing team approach this sequence?
Listen, it's a tough subject, and it was in Jilly's book, but it was mentioned in Jilly's book, but you can't just mention it when you have it on screen. So we had to create how it worked. And we created the intercut between the beauty pageant and the rape scene, because we felt you were seeing the gloss of what
Totally.
the media industry was supposed to be. And then the reality for a lot of women in those days, the 80s and 90s, sexual assault in the workplace was commonplace, and there were no repercussions. So we wanted to have you feel what it was like, and the hammering of the hose with the banging when the assault was happening, and made it feel, we hope, more powerful and traumatic.
Did you have any other favourite scenes where you feel like those elements of light and shade are in there kind of dueling at the same time?
Another one of my favorite scenes is the scene when Maud lies under the tree with Declan. And it was a much longer scene originally, and sadly it had to be cut back due to time. But it was that sort of exploration of marriage. You kind of expect her to yell at him when she comes out, because she's supposed to be furious with him, and you've seen her angry at him a lot. And when she comes out, she sees him lying there, and she stops, and she hesitates, and she looks at him and is thinking, I love you, and I just want us to be happy, and then of course he gets up, and in the middle of her emotional sort of revelation, he gets up because he's distracted by work. And I like the light and dark of marriages, and their marriage especially.
Tony tells Daisy to stay quiet when he finds out who's assaulted her. But, and this is, I think, such a lovely moment, it's his secretary who supports her. Let's remind ourselves of that.
This terrible thing which has happened to you is your secret. It's also your weapon. Use it to get what you want from them. Do you hear me? Don't be sad. Be angry. It'll serve you better, dear.
It's such a powerful scene, and it's so special, I think, that it comes from her, who's quite a quiet secondary character, obviously a much older woman, and just for her to be saying to her, don't bury this, use this, it's just amazing to watch. What were some of the conversations in the writers' room about how to create that scene?
That was just something that we had discussed as writers, my writing partner and I, and how Miss Madden was going to respond to Daisy, because obviously she's there, she sees what happens, she doesn't have any power. And it relates back to the powerlessness that women had at that time, but they found their power in what ways they could. And so Miss Madden, who'd obviously been around for a long time, was trying to tell her, you still have power. It might not be from your boss helping you, your boss, it might not be from traditional justice, but we can try to get through this together, and we can try to keep our power in some way.
Lara, that must have been a tough scene to film. How did you take care of yourself when you're filming that kind of thing?
I mean, I was really lucky on set. We had the intimacy coordinator on the day, Yarrick Dorr, who's incredible, who I've also worked with before, and Dee, our second block director, who shot those scenes, was really patient and great, and, we had lots of conversations around it. So I felt really supported through doing those scenes, and with David Calder playing Reverend Penny. But I think coming away from that kind of work and stepping out of it, you have to really kind of make sure you are looking after yourself. I mean, for me, on Rivals in particular, that was just going out for food with everyone at the end of the day. Like, we were so blessed on this job with just amazing cast and crew, and you know, you could kind of just unwind with everyone, and we could just step in and out of our characters with ease, I think.
Lara, Daisy becomes more empowered as the series progresses. What do you think comes next for her? Could she ever be Mrs. Friedlander?
Oh my God. I mean, he's deaded her off quite hard, I think, after his interview.
So hilarious.
I know, bless her. She goes from all these like high hopes and expectations of what her life might be, and then in a second it's just gone. Yeah, it's interesting. I think with Cameron Cook coming into Corinium and Declan O'Hara as well, I think Daisy's definitely been there for that shift, knowing what Corinium's like before that happens, and now this kind of new Corinium. And I think although she's very like low down the ladder, she still has to go through Seb Burrows to get anything higher up. Like, I think she feels inspired and ambitious looking at people like Cameron Cook and Declan O'Hara. She wants to learn, and I think she's finding her feet.
Maybe Cameron Cook could take Daisy under her wing, and Daisy will be cracking the whip
But maybe
at a
that
television
means
franchise near you soon.
maybe she'd be going to Ventura there in that case.
Duplicitous Daisy, does she have it in her?
Well, everyone else is gone.
Lara and Mimi, thank you so much for stopping by my Rutshire drawing room. It has been a pleasure to have you both.
It's been a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for having us.
Coming up,
Oh, when Ginger, he did that snicker. I mean, there was something in me that really like got angry.
I broke it to my children and they cried and said, "Oh, you can't pick us up from school then." I said, okay, well, you know, let's just wait. And then actually they grew to love it like I did.
do note there will be spoilers. Kat, what is one thing that shocked you from the series?
Declan's moustache, actually. I mean, it was like a walrus had just suddenly taken up residence on the man's face.
Surprisingly quite sexy, though.
Oh, it completely works after a while. But initially I was just like, that's 8 months worth of facial hair? I was distracted for at least the first 5 minutes just trying to work out the architecture of how something like that fits on such a handsome man's face.
It completely changes how Aidan Turner looks as well. I could fully understand if someone didn't realise it was him for most of the series. What an incredible series this is. I didn't think it was possible for an adaptation to truly reflect the glamour, sex, drama, madness, humour of this bonkbuster, and I'm so thrilled to be proved wrong. What have been your favourite moments?
The dinner party, where Rupert is very bad. And it has all kinds of repercussions. But mainly because of how Monica Baddingham responds to Cameron in that dinner party. That was very interesting. The garden party, the TV, you know, when they're doing the green lawns?
Yeah.
That was too funny. I think a lot of the very sweet moments where all the right people find the right love.
Kat, how about you?
I was just obsessed by the fact that it was as good as the books. I am one of those adults who found Jilly Cooper in moments of boredom in my aunt's bookcases and that sort of thing. And having the show brought to life by people who so clearly love it, who understand her and don't patronise her and her writing, like hearing so many of her like incredibly funny lines coming out verbatim was just fabulous, because there have been adaptations before and they've just been awful. I mean, I literally would rather watch paint dry. So from that opening insane sequence of Rupert bonking Beatty on Concord, it was just heaven. I was absolutely in raptures throughout.
Can we talk about the casting? Because I was blown away by how well matched each actor was to their part. Danny Dyer as Freddie, David Tennant as Tony Baddingham. Rupert, at first I thought, my God, he's got to have blonde hair. And then as soon as I saw him walk down the aisle of the Concorde, you think that is Rupert. Yeah. That is so completely Rupert. What were some of your favourite casting, Kat?
I really loved Catherine Parkinson as Lizzie.
Yes.
Lizzie has always been one of my favourite characters, partly because Jilly's world is so influenced by how women had to behave in the 80s, and Lizzie enjoys life, enjoys food, doesn't take things too seriously. And here she's a real shoulder for Rupert as well, which is great. They have a really like non-sexual relationship, which for Rupert is just not possible.
It's a really rare thing.
Completely.
Yes.
But you're so right about Alex as well. He's just amazing because he brings that charisma, he brings that wit, that humour and that silliness that make the women of Rutshire weak at the knees, alongside the fact he lives in an absolutely massive house and seems to be quite wealthy.
He's extremely smouldering and snake-hipped as Rupert, I think. He's just got that sort of swagger down to a T. What was some of your favourite castings?
Because I don't know the characters from the book, which I want to just be honest about, I was like, oh, all of these people their whole life have just practiced for this character. They were all so good. Even Taggy's younger sister, Caitlin, she was so good. I was like, I totally buy her, even though she would sit and just tell the family secrets at the table to the first person who walks through the door. I'm like, yeah, tracks, totally believable. Yeah. So I think, they were all cast so well. David Tennant, obviously, someone I've seen in a lot of other things. Here's the thing. He's not the only bad guy on this show, but he's able to be the worst bad guy.
Yes.
And that's a very David Tennant thing. That's beautiful.
I've got a game for you both. Quick fire round. You're a key Rutshire power player and you're about to put on an enormous dinner party. Who's invited from the show? Who are you sitting next to? And what's being served?
Oh, so first off, I don't want anybody who's going to talk about work. The dullest dinner party under the sun. I only want really bitchy gossips and people who really like getting drunk. Oh, I mean, that's for me in the kitchen whilst I don't know, stir a tagine or something. So obviously Maud, because that woman can obtain alcohol from anywhere without seemingly paying for it. I haven't drunk alcohol in 5 years. For this dinner party, I'm making an exception. Lizzie, because even though she's kind and lovely, she's also a tremendous gossip. And with that, obviously, we need Charles and Baz.
Yes.
And I would say Taggy, but I don't want her to come because I don't want that,
You wouldn't put
good
a maid
upwardly
outfit
mobile. No, not
and
at
get
all.
her to cook.
So for cooking, I would poach Chessie France Lynch from the next book, Polo, who's another very bored wife.
Play quite fast and loose with this.
Oh yeah, totally. And borrow her from wherever she is. I think she's in Florida at some point. Get her to fly over especially and make the obligatory shepherd's pie. I just think that would be a wonderful basis for a party in which Maud and Chessie and I wouldn't invite Cameron because again the work chat, but they're not going to have to show off to Rupert or something and just spoil the party. Baz will give enough sort of straight man appreciation, but still be funny and interesting enough and have all the latest gossip from his bar. And Charles, just because, my God, I would follow Charles anywhere.
Okay, that sounds incredibly well thought out, given how on the spot you were. Sindhu, who would be at your dinner party? What would you be eating?
So I would have Monica Bettingham, Lizzie, Freddie. They would sit next to each other. I would have Rupert because he's just fun. But I don't want Taggy there because, she's kind of like deep about everything. But I want her to cook because I'm vegetarian. And I feel like this group would be a bit like vegetarian. I mean, Monica Bettingham would be like, what? Like, it's okay that you didn't shoot it, but is it vegetarian? What are you talking about? So we would fix this. I would get Freddie kind of food. Freddie likes good food and very English, but the kind of food Freddie would pick. Something like amazing fish and chips. And I know fish is not vegetarian, but I'd make an exception. And like very English food that you hear about when you're growing up in India, like mushy peas, bubble and squeak. This kind of stuff that belongs in Rutshire, And then, but for starter, I would blow their minds by making gazpacho. Because Malaga, cold soup, so weird for English people. So I'd do that. I'd have that as the main course. And then we'd have like a massive F-off pudding. So English, like a big sponge pudding with lots of custard. So very English, very comforting, slightly weird, fun people, nice people. And I would make sure that I sat next to Monica Bettingham because I think she knows a lot. She knows that her husband has indiscretions when he's not on the helicopter back to London kind of thing. She gets that. It's the fact that I think she senses that Cameron is special. That bothers her. That's what, but not that he's sleeping with her. And then when Valerie comes and says, oh, blah, blah, she just keeps shooting. So she doesn't want to hear it because there's something special there.
Oh my God, that scene.
Yeah, so beautiful, that scene. I mean, I was like, note to self, if ever you're in that situation, behave like Monica. I don't know where I'd get a gun.
Always have a shotgun to hand.
Or like, I don't know how I
Mousy
would,
sort of just backing off thinking, I
maybe
read
I'd,
this wrong.
Clank some pots and pans. I don't know. But I just thought that's so classy. I want to be like her when I'm ever, God forbid, told that my husband's having an affair. I want to be like her. and I want to ask her about things, I think she would talk. So I think it would be like that. And Taggy would cook, and I'd say thanks, and I'd be like, kiddo, you need to go home, go to sleep. You're very young.
Joining me now are the inimitable Nafisa Williams, who plays Cameron Cook, and the brilliant writer, Dare Ayegbayo. Nafisa, Dare, thank you so much for coming along today.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Nafisa, did you get to keep your Ventura t-shirt?
You know what? I think I may have given it back. I'm gonna be honest. If there were some things I was gonna keep, it wouldn't have been the Victoria. It would have been the Mugler dress that I had on, or the Armani suit that I wore in episode 2.
Did you love the clothes?
I was obsessed.
Clothes.
Yes, I was so obsessed. I'm a fashion girl, so to be able to play with 80s fashion, and I mean, like the high waist skirts and the belts and the hair and the red lip and the nails, like all of it was just a vibe for me. I had so much fun doing our fittings with our designer, Ray.
I think you have the best wardrobe, actually.
Thank you.
Because there's some pretty dicey 80s sweaters, but Cameron doesn't go near those. She's kind of like sharp shoulders only, isn't she?
For sure. Hey, check me out.
Dari, what was it like writing for this glitzy and glamorous 80s world?
It was a lot of fun. I mean, I was just a child in the 80s, but I have memories of the shows that were on then that were big, that were glamorous. And this kind of was an opportunity to sort of dip into the nostalgia of the period, which was so different from where we are now. It was so unapologetically full on and glamorous, and it was a lot of fun. It was pure escapism.
Nafisa, you do a great job with Cameron's character, focusing less on her legendary hissy fits and more on her incredible skill at her job. What intrigued you to the role?
I just loved how smart she was. Like, she was smart, she's confident, she's firm in who she is, and she also, you know, like, she's one of those, she doesn't just talk the talk, she can back it up, and that is what intrigued me, and I was like, I have to play her. I always think about characters, I think about representation. You know, her being in, a white man's 80s world back then, and having control of this company, and people, you know, someone like Tony trusting her to do the job at that gave her even more confidence to be like, okay, he sees it, he sees what I see in myself, and he believes it, so that was good for me. And my favorite scenes are the office scenes, when she gets to show like how badass she is. So yeah, it did it for me.
With four men went to mow.
You know how hard that line was for me to get out at first? I remember being in my trailer, like, 4 men went to mow.
It is. Well, I just stumbled it. I actually didn't realise.
It's a tongue twister. It is.
Cameron comes up against a great deal of discrimination in the series. I mean, you mentioned this is the 80s, this is the entertainment world. And there's a scene with her, Tony, and Ginger, which we're just going to remind ourselves of now.
Okay.
We need big game like Declan to convince the IBA to renew our contract. We lose the franchise, there won't be any drama to produce. You'll be on the next boat back.
I didn't come here on a boat.
Forgive me, semantics.
I flew here on fucking Concorde. Oh, when Ginger, when he did that snicker, I mean, there was something in me that really, like, got angry. And I love how powerful, again, like, no matter how powerful Tony is or Alex is in the show, she's like, I'm just as badass, like, bringing that New York authentic energy to it. And I just, that was a powerful statement. It's just like, remember who you're talking to.
Dare, I understand the scenes between Cameron and Rupert were your first ever sex scenes for TV.
They were.
How did you approach them?
I mean, fortunately, the book gives you so much. Jilly's sort of approach to the sex scenes is so fun and so playful that was a really great starting point. And then going from there, and we had a lot of conversation with the execs about how we wanted the sex with Rupert and Cameron to be different from the way it is with Tony. And the fact that, you know, Rupert's a sportsman and Cameron is kind of really aware of her physicality. It was kind of a much more physical, athletic sort of almost combative sex as well. It's a lot of tussling to see who's going to be on top. And even the way that it's scored, the music that is used, it's from a sort of a fight scene. So you get all of that in it, and you really feel that it's between two equals as well.
Well, we see a different side of Cameron as well.
Yeah.
When she's in Spain, it's like they're kind of not in real life when they're there. They go to that incredible dinner, and she's kind of quite impressed.
Yes.
Yeah.
She's like, this is what life could be like. It's a lot more fun than with Tony.
Yeah, and I think, too, speaking to the difference in the relationship, there's a vulnerability that she feels more safe and comfortable with Rupert that she doesn't feel so much with Tony. And not that she doesn't have a love for Tony and she doesn't enjoy it, because she does. It's more of a power play with them two, where she feels like she can let her hair down a bit more. You see her laugh a lot more with Rupert. You see a softer side that I was like really interested and excited to explore, because she's multi-layered. She's not just the woman who's running around the office screaming and who's just this powerhouse. She does get lonely. She does need affection, and she is away from her family. And he's so charming, Rupert, that she feels so safe and kind of comfortable. I think they share a compatibility that is very much different than what she shares with Tony, and that's fun to show the differentiation.
Cameron and Rupert embark on their love affair in Spain. Rupert is obviously motivated by pretty despicable means, at least at first, or in part. He wants the franchise bid. But he does develop real feelings for Cameron and she for him. How was it working with Alex on those scenes?
Alex is such a treat and a gentleman. You know, when you think about sex scenes and the vulnerability that comes with that, I mean, I felt really safe. And with David as well, like I couldn't have asked for better co-stars to be so vulnerable with. It was just really fun navigating it and seeing, again, a softer side, and also exploring, you know, she didn't really come here expecting to fall in love with.
She's just been catapulted into this Rocha world, and suddenly she's got boyfriends coming out.
And what I also, I also appreciated was she comes back different from Spain.
Yeah.
She understands her worth a bit more. She also understands what she wants a bit more in a man, and I love that she comes home and she's very clear.
Those scenes between Cameron and Rupert Dare, I heard that your first draft of some of the sexier scenes had to be toned down.
God.
I want to see the originals.
Ooh, tell us.
Who told you that?
I have my spies. Were they swinging from the chandeliers in Malaga? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Oh my God, I felt a bit shocked now.
Inside of a writer's
there was
mind.
definitely something in there that had to come out.
Can you tell me afterwards what it was?
I can tell you afterwards. I
thank
think
you.
I can say it now.
I think I might know.
Do you?
I think I might know. I think
That's
I know.
good though. You want to bring all the spice.
Yeah, it was fun
It'd be worse
to
if it was the other
write.
way around and they were like, more spice.
Exactly.
I think I might have been oversharing a bit too much in that first draft. But it was definitely fun to write, and I aimed to get that particular thing on screen somewhere with someone. But yeah,
You have a lot of intrigued listeners right now.
Right.
For that particular thing.
I'm like, do I know? Maybe I don't.
I bet Cameron would be up.
Cameron is up. Oh, Cameron's up for it. Yeah. There's not a lot she's not up for.
Cameron definitely enjoys life. It's one of the things I love about watching her. Doria, I understand there was a female-led writers' room for the series. How did your experience writing for Rivals differ from other projects you've worked on?
Largely because it was so predominantly female, and that doesn't mean that it was quieter. There were some really strong, very passionate voices in the room, which was great. And people bring also their experiences and just shedding new light on who these women were at this particular time, but also how we can make it feel more contemporary. And we saw that across the board. So the original writers' room was quite large and quite rowdy, actually. It was quite rowdy, but it was a lot of fun to kind of
How does much writing get done, I always wonder?
It didn't then. It was just lots of brainstorming, lots of throwing out ideas, lots of kind of exploring sort of what we wanted to do with the characters. And then when we went back and did the second writers' room, it was smaller, less rowdy, but still really passionate. And it was a really good experience because I think it can often feel, anyone who's done writers' rooms can often feel that it can be a real challenge to be heard in the room. And it was very collegiate, it was very collaborative and very open to ideas. I think that was really great. Is nothing was off limits in terms of being able to discuss it. And I think that just opens you up to be able to take things in all sorts of unexpected directions. And not everything takes, but it was quite liberating.
Nafisa, Dari, it's been fantastic having you. Thank you so much for coming along.
Thanks for having us.
Cinder and Kat, did you see that ending coming? Cinder, you first.
I did not. I was like, wow, this got crazy. She killed Tony.
Or did she?
There is a lot of blood for somebody who's not dead.
There's too much blood for a living person. I'm sorry. It should be
Are the head
inside your
wounds,
body.
Don't they bleed a lot, head wounds?
Not that much. Also, we've all seen the movies. That kind of blood is dead person blood. That much blood, if it's not in you, it's over. But did you see in the close-up they do? He kind of flickered his eye like this, and I thought, oh, maybe he's alive. Like, it was confusing, but I felt the blood was a dead
Yeah,
person.
I don't
That
understand.
he was just doing a sexy wink because he's in a Jilly Cooper adaptation.
This is parting gift. We simply must talk about that climax. First up, what did we make of Lizzie and Freddie finally getting down to it? It is one of my favourite parts of the whole show. That slow-burning, sweet love story. That's sex scene as well. It's just amazing.
It was shot like a perfume advert, but good.
It was.
It was just everything about it. Female director, the lighting,
Al fresco.
everything gorgeous. And it was so tender as well.
It was.
I mean, as somebody who grew up in the countryside, I was concerned about the fact that they were outside naked under a tree. That just felt extremely uncomfortable. Please go inside, for heaven's sake, you don't know what's there. But apart from that, it was
Yes,
just
I think they were quite worried about ticks filming it.
Yes,
I might have made this up.
I think they did say that. That they ended up having to line the ground with moss, and Dominic Treadwell Collins said
Yes.
that it was the first time that moss had featured as a safe sex component.
Yes. And maybe now not the last. Maybe that
Remember
myth
your moss
started something.
people, especially if you're in the countryside.
Then, of course, there was the big kiss between Rupert and Taggy, a relationship that's been simmering through all 8 episodes. Let's remind ourselves of their moment in the kitchen.
It's the franchise. Cameron. I'm trapped. I can't get out of it.
I'm not asking you to.
She's not you. I can't breathe without you.
Okay, let's just get the elephant in the room
They
out the
take
way.
the franchise quite seriously.
But hey, he hasn't mortgaged his house, his dogs, his horses for the MP job. He's done it for the franchise.
He has for Ventura.
And he's bought some field and mortgaged his house. I was like, what kind of finances is this?
That was an act of great romance, wasn't it, to get Declan out of debt?
It was lovely. My husband bought precisely 0 woods when courting me. I'm
see?
livid.
Well, Rupert and Declan weren't even courting.
No, but
he was trying to court someone else. Yes. God, wow, that's a circuitous route, isn't it, to getting someone's hand, buying a field off their father.
Yeah.
What did we make of their journey to get there? Sindhu, I know you're a little bit sceptical of Rupert, fair enough.
No, I'm not skeptical of Rupert. I'm skeptical of the age difference.
There is that big age gap. It's true. I think she's meant to be a wise head on young shoulders.
And it's interesting seeing how we read that now in 2024, knowing so much more
it's a good point.
about therapy, life, the trope of the young person who's wise beyond their years. But
because they've had to be, yeah.
Exactly. And I mean, she's lumbered with 2 of the most appallingly neglectful parents in the Jilly universe, which is saying quite a lot. That is a trope that does turn up quite often.
Taggy's running around doing that classic woman thing of, I'm going to fix a broken man. And he's like, you're a beautiful
I don't think she fixes him, though. I think he changes.
That's her hope, I think.
I think he changes of his own volition for her. I don't think she tries to fix him, or even think she's going to be with him.
Well,
I think
remember
she's
when
very
she
surprised.
shuts the door in his face? He says, I'm sick of being sorry. And she's like, well, then stop doing things that.
I don't think she thinks, though, there's any romance in it.
You don't think she has the hots from him quite from early on?
I think she has the hots for him. I don't think she thinks for a second that they would get together.
Yeah, agreed.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought she hoped it. That's why she started crying when he's with Cameron. She goes out and starts crying.
Just in the way that you pine for someone. I think she thinks he wants to be with someone like Cameron or Beatty or Sarah, who are all diametrically opposed to Taggy, which is, of course, why he wants Taggy.
And because, of course, like Taggy is dyslexic and in a family of incredibly bright non-dyslexic people, and she's surrounded by women, and this is another surprise in this sort of novel of that time, pretty much all the women in this book work. And she's surrounded by people who are cerebral, who can think on their feet, whereas Taggy has so many talents. And my God, it seems like she is literally the only person in Rutcher who can cook. But also she has kind, she has heart, and she has a spine,
Inspired
which
by everyone.
in the book she doesn't. And it's just that's sort of quite a big thing for her to have to understand, because all the women that Rupert are with are sort of like hothouse flowers. and she's not.
There are some really interesting references to the wider world of Jilly Cooper's Rupture, which fans may notice. Plus, there's a cameo from Jilly herself. Let's remind ourselves of that.
Step by step, he climbed his way up her inner thigh until he could feel the biblical heat of her burning bush. You're a genius. It's going to be a smash hit.
I love the way Felicity Kendall says, "You're a genius, it's going to be a smash hit." And Jilly looks back at her and it's like she's saying, "You're a genius" to Jilly. There's, of course, also a reference to Rupert having children, which we don't even meet, Tabitha and Marcus, but he's obviously had this very acrimonious breakup with his ex-wife, Helen, who he treated terribly. And she is playing, obviously, some sort of game where she won't let him speak to them on Christmas Day. And that's when you see this chink in his armour, don't you, when he tries to get through to them.
Hi, Helen. Me again. Are the kids around?
Oh, sorry. Bad timing. We're just watching a movie.
Perhaps you could try again tomorrow.
Tomorrow's not Christmas.
Yeah, but I get them on Christmas, so...
Did they at least like their presents?
Let's speak tomorrow. Bye.
It's this very tragic thing of Rupert trying to be Father of the Year while wearing a sexy Father Christmas costume.
It makes it more tragic, doesn't it, to watch? It makes it more painful. And then immediately that artifice comes back, doesn't he, when he jumps back into bed.
Very much. And I loathe Helen in the books for very different reasons to in the TV show. And I really like the way that there is lots of gentle signposting and very quick signposting to the fact that they both have a very complicated past relationship and that perhaps their marriage didn't end in the best possible way.
And that's maybe why Rupert has not settled down with someone else.
Mm.
And for the really eagle-eyed, they might notice the name Perdita.
Oh, it's such a good moment. It's real people who grew up with the books fodder, but also it just immediately shows Declan as a great investigative journalist. It's a lovely piece of shorthand for that, I think.
Sindhu, Kat, it's been a pleasure, and you must come back again soon.
Thank you. Ravishing.
Thank you.
And now to our final guests for Rivals, the official podcast. I'm joined once again by the fantastic Dominic Treadwell-Collins. And he's brought with him the man who plays Freddie Jones. It's the one and only Danny Dyer. Danny, Dominic, welcome.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank
Pleasure.
you.
What a wonderful setup this is.
And at my Rupture residence, it's beautiful.
It's a sophistication. Because we're sophisticated people.
We are very.
You are, and there is nothing more sophisticated than your hair in Rivals. It's been a bit of a running theme, hair, in this podcast, and you have possibly the most iconic combo in the series with your pudding bowl and your thick tash. Did it help you get into the character of Fred?
Well, I've never wore a wig for anything. I'm at an age now, I'm a grandfather, and I am losing my hair, which is I'm accepting it. But you know, it's when you get a job and they go, "Oh, if you can have a wig," I thought, "Oh, I see." The thing is about the '80s is it's such a look, and nobody's really bowling around with '80s hairdos anymore. Very rarely. But it was my tash.
Yeah.
And that was a last-minute call. I think we was going to try and go with a... There was pictures up of sort of Alan Sugar with a sort of tight perm and a big beard, and they were saying, "Oh, maybe we'll go down that route." And then it was a lastminute.com that's like, "Oh, actually, we think we want you to have a moustache," which I broke it to my children, and they cried and said, "Oh, you can't pick us up from school then." I said, "Okay, well, let's just wait." And then actually they grew to love it, like I did. But Jill done such an amazing job with all the wigs. And I loved having a fringe for a bit, and I was flicking that around as much as I possibly could, But for me, I was certainly looking to do something different, and it starts with looking different. I've never had any opportunities to look completely different, My way of being versatile was just have a shave. But I think it really helps with the way, my physicality with Fred, who's such a lovely, gentle soul, really.
Dominic, give us 3 words to describe that final episode.
Big duff duff. I'm going back to the EastEnders thing. A big duff duff. I would say big duff duff or franchise television gripping, which are never words you put together. It was really hard to make. Will they be able to get the franchise?
I can see
gripping storyline. So we were pushing that through.
Well, it's interesting because actually, I mean, the franchise is important, but the show's so good, and the characters are just, you're so intrigued and fascinated by what they're going to do next. Actually, the franchise sort of, it's a sort of a side thing. It is it could have been the main thing.
It's what brings them all together.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, it's the start of why it's called Rivals. You know, why do we become rivals, all these people? But it needed something. It needed something where you go, oh, it can't end there.
Yeah.
It cannot end there, please. And, you know, to have Tennant, Lord Banningham, you know, on the floor, you know, with claret popping out of his nut. You know, you can't leave Tennant like that. It's never been done before, and it will never be done in the future. So, you know, it's the perfect ending for me.
Freddie's such a gorgeous character because he's obviously hugely successful. But unlike the other characters, he wears it very lightly, his success. You just see it through the word processors and the boombox and all of that. Unlike Tony and Declan and Rupert, he has got this moral backbone. He's not a bully. What was your favourite thing about playing someone so incredibly lovely?
Well, it was weird when it came to me, because when it came to me, this job, I couldn't do it. And then it went away, and I think you went to try and find Freddie. And the stars were aligned, because then it came, they couldn't find Freddie. And so they came back to me, and then the thing that I was attached to got moved. So I was like, oh, wow. But anyway, they needed an answer really quickly, and I hadn't read all the scripts. And obviously me and Dom, who, you know, my good friend, I said, Dom, just sell it to me. And he just said, well, look, he's a teddy bear with a bite. I thought, oh, I'm sold. I'm absolutely sold.
Danny and Catherine, so they were the first actors Laura and I were thinking of when we were writing right at the start. Because Danny and I
That's
have
fantastic
known each
when you're
other-
writing for someone in specific that you then... How rare is that?
Danny and I have known each other for years through EastEnders.
Well, when I was in EastEnders and Dom was with me, and then Dom said, oh, I'm going. I went, wait, what? Where are you going? I mean, Dom, you know, he created the Carters. He created, you know, Mick. I was his father in real life.
Yeah.
And
Named after
Linda
my
being
father, playing my father.
and Linda being his mum, and so I found it very difficult. You know, I decided to leave, and one of the first calls I got was from my man Dom, and who would have thought it would have been to make me a Disney star.
Yeah, you're a Disney star.
And you need Fred in this show, and Lizzie, you know, because he is the light, and he is a powerful man, and he's clever, and he's smart, and he's switched on, but he doesn't exert any of that power at all, and he's quite, like I said before, there's something quite childlike about him, and he loves, and he just wants to have fun, and he'll dance in front of a room of people, do you know what I mean? And Val gets embarrassed by him, and she keeps fat shaming him and all this sort of stuff, and you know, but he sort of wears it and he gets on with it, and you're just a joyous character to play. The Japanese speaking
That was amazing.
Was difficult. I'm not going to lie.
That is such a
And
great scene.
A meme, isn't it?
Well, when we got to the read through, and I thought, oh, let's get into the Japanese bit. I did have to swerve it at that point, but I had a great man called Chase on WhatsApp who was on me, and he kept saying it to me, and we was having different conversations. It's really difficult to learn, but also because I've got the. It's one of the rare occasions where Fred's got the ump.
Yeah.
So he's on the phone to his Japanese sort of pal and sort of giving it to him, and then going, come on, Mousy, we've got to go, and then back into Japanese. That was what was difficult. But Dom's assured me that if we go again, there wouldn't be much more Japanese, would there, Dom?
There'll be a whole section.
Please, don't. Surely not Japanese.
Freddie in Japan.
Karaoke, but in Japanese. Imagine.
It's great though, because it shows his global power.
Mustn't give him ideas. Mustn't give him ideas.
There's a fantastic mic drop moment during a phone call between Tony and Freddie. Let's remind ourselves of that.
I heard everything. You, Sarah, all of them.
I don't mind people making fun of me. It's just that nobody makes fun of my Valerie.
We all love Mousy.
I hate snobs, Tony.
And you're the worst kind there is, the kind who's forgotten where he came from.
Somebody needed to tell Lord Baddingham straight. There ain't many people in the show that does that.
No.
But, you know, don't fuck with Fred.
He's got no time for snobbery.
He's got no time for snobbery, and especially the worst kind, the ones that have forgot where they came from, you know, especially him. And, of course, he's protecting his wife as well. It shows a side to him that even though Val does treat him like shit.
Yeah,
He's there
Mousie's
for her.
quite mean.
Oh, she's awful to him. No, I'm on
But you can
take
see-
Fred, and all that, you know.
You can see, I think, Mousie's just got this fear, this huge fear of not fitting in.
Yeah.
You can tell that she's desperately insecure.
Yeah, but I think Fred's sort of got the same fear, but he's open and honest about it, and he doesn't care as much as Valerie. It means everything to her to have the right people in her house, and you know the clobber that she's wearing, you know, which is brilliant, by the way. Something,
amazing.
especially when she turns up for the shoot.
The shoot is sensational.
And you go, that is incredible.
Danny, how did it feel to finally ignite that relationship with Lizzie? It's such a tender love story, and it's of course complicated by the fact that Freddie's very loyal to Mousie, but he can be himself with Lizzie, can't he?
It's an interesting story, isn't it? It's how rare is it that you're sort of watching something and you're rooting for people to have an affair?
Yeah.
I mean, you just don't see it, and it's morally wrong and all that. But you know, these two, they're sort of the moral compass of the show in a way. But they are in awful marriages. There's no two ways about it. And they're both trying their hardest, and they're getting nowhere. And they don't feel seen. And there's just something between them. We don't have that many scenes together, but the scenes that we're in, they're so powerful and they're so clever, and there's an undeniable connection. And they both become quite childlike within their flirting and their sort of sexual energy. They don't quite know what to do with it, but they're giddy around it, you know what I mean? So the way it's paced out, I think, over the episodes is absolutely perfect. And, you know, and also, look, Lizzie elbows Fred. You know, Fred does try and put it on her, and they're going to meet in a hotel and she can't do it. And so, you know, Fred actually accepts it and goes, oh, okay, maybe she's right. You know what? We are married. And then so when she does walk in at the end, and it's shot beautifully, that, by the way.
Yeah.
You know.
I cry.
I cried watching that
Bonnie
scene.
Tyler?
Yeah,
Is it
Total Eclipse of the
Total
Heart.
Eclipse of the Heart, right? So, what a tune as well.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that idea, that great line that I say to her about, have you any idea how fucking beautiful you are? And that she just, you know, then we finally embrace. Because it's pretty simple, really. But it's just perfectly done. And they need each other. They do. And it's wrong. But it's the one affair in the whole show you're rooting for.
And it was so well shot.
And so
Alexandra
well shot.
Brodsky, just the way it's shot, it feels kind of Lady Chatterley's.
Yeah, because you put me, they made a decision to put me in the white shirt with my braces on.
Yeah.
You know, bowling around with me bottle of wine, and it
And
all
she's
became
like
a bit.
stripping them off you.
Yeah,
and
it's quite period
outside.
drama, actually, isn't it? And
Yeah.
like dew. Does she have like droplets?
There's droplets of dew, and then he pours the line from
yes,
the book
pours
that Laura and I kept talking about. I declare this an area of outstanding natural beauty as he
Yes.
goes down on her,
Yes.
pours champagne. And we kept saying we've got to keep that line in, but also make it feel sexy and not silly.
What, that you read it and go, oh, how on earth we're going to make
Yeah.
it sexy? And actually, because we're
Yes,
doing it
it's
sort of because we're
cheesy,
sort of chuckling and giggling, that makes it sexy, you know. And she does say, I've never done this before. And I'm like, what, sex? She's like, no, having an affair. And it's like, no, is he? And so, but they just want each other so much. They're so hungry for each other, and they need each other so badly. And I think that, you know, that it's a beautiful moment. It's really, and it's right at the end. It needed to.
Yeah.
It couldn't have come any sooner.
Before I let you both go, I want one favourite moment from this series.
I think for me, my karaoke moment, because I really found a different side to Fred there. I'm scared around it, I had a bit of fear around it, because when you shoot this sort of stuff, you don't play the music to everybody. They just had me raw singing Bat Out of Hell, and that's a few of them are still traumatised from that experience, I believe. So, but it was a moment where I thought that it really saw the playful side, and I had my little red handkerchief, and he really commits to this. And the idea of showing people a karaoke machine, they're like, "What is that?" You think it's only 40 years ago. The idea of going, what is it? Well, you can sing, and you know, and so I think it's a really important moment within it. So that was a beautiful moment for me.
Dominic, what about you?
Patrick O'Hara's 21st. Because we filmed it quite early on. It was the first time all the cast were together, really. And I think the way Elliot directed it, it feels like you go to his party. And knowing, as obsessive about the book, I remember feeling that party in the book, and you feel like you've been at a messy 21st birthday party that goes into the early hours of the morning when you feel a bit sticky and a bit grubby.
Yes.
And everyone is there. It's when Rupert and Taggy, their relationship changes. So many things change in that moment. And there's this scene with everyone dancing, we don't have to take our clothes off, that I know you guys shot again and again and again.
Yeah.
And everyone is there, and Lizzie and Freddie are dancing slightly in time, and it makes me beam.
Yes.
It makes me beam.
And there's a camel in it.
And there's a camel.
I mean, what more do you need in life? Let's have it right.
Danny, Dominic, it's been fantastic having you. Thank you so much for coming to see me.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Remember, you can catch up on all the Rivals action on Disney Plus and Hulu. Thanks to the whole Rivals team for joining me in this Rutger drawing room of dreams. And thank you for watching.